Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here. I'm with Liz Trotter. Our guest today is Molly Whalen, and this is Smart Business Moves.
Woohoo!
Ooh.
How
Yeah.
many of you are all out there wondering, wow, why are they so early, only 2 minutes late?
Oh, stop it.
Tom, I know you like to just like you're the person that likes to show up late to the party so that everybody looks at you. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
that just sounds so much like you.
Well,
That you
actually, you show up late. You're not like the only person there. That's really awkward because if you show up and there's a bunch of people there, you can kind of hang around the wall and blend in. But if you like show up and you're like the first
all the
person, you have to work.
time.
You
Well,
actually have to show up as
only
yourself.
there. What
Yes.
was there to do? Just stand there. That's
Yeah.
pretty
It's
If you're the first
interesting.
one
This
there, if
kind
you're
of
the only
goes
person there, you have to talk.
right.
to yourself.
Well, I mean,
Not
well, those
the host.
I'm assuming there's a guest or somebody. I mean, a host rather. I mean,
All
you know
right.
what I mean. You know what I mean.
Why am I really green? My green screen must be strong right now. I'm
Mm.
not green.
You're not. You're not. I don't know. You don't look green from here.
I don't. Okay, I look green. I look green on mine, or I'm very jaundiced. One of the two,
Hmm.
but not a.
Molly, how have you been?
I've been really great. Thank you for asking.
What
Yes, and
what you been doing the last few weeks?
so I was in New Zealand on the South Island for a couple of weeks, which was amazing. My son was going to a semester abroad down in Dunedin, and so my family flew out to see him. So that was really, really magical. If anyone gets a chance to go there, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's like having Glacier National Park in your background, in the background, and then you have about 30 beaches down in Dunedin alone. So it's incredible landscape.
Is the weather cold there this time of year?
So it's opposite. So we went in May, and so it was their fall. So it was interesting to leave in the spring and arrive in the fall. So the leaves were changing, and they were the leaves were dropping. It was really beautiful, though. Great weather.
That is really interesting. I never thought of that before, but yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense, right? Ah, very cool.
And what's really odd is I dreamt one night and everybody was upside down. So don't ask. I don't know if it's because I felt like I was on the other side of the world or what. It's a
I don't know.
little
I
odd.
never heard about it, but I won't ask. How long is your son over there, Molly?
He was over there for about 5 months doing a
Oh,
semester abroad. Yeah.
so
So
nice. Yay.
yes, really good.
Well, I'm looking forward to our topic today. We're going to talk about disrupting leadership.
Yes,
It's great.
that's what I'm planning on doing. So thank you for hosting and having me on your show. And I think Tom has some of my slides, but just to introduce myself, I own Mountain Maids. I've owned Mountain Maids since 2007, so a really long time. I have about 24 employees here in Bozeman, Montana. We have a division in Bozeman and also in Big Sky. We do just around $1 million every year. And so that's the one business that I have. And then I also have Synergy Growth Coach, which is a life and business coach program as well. So I'm mentoring women and men as far as business is concerned and trying to break free of some of the inner barriers that tend to hold us back and keep us playing a smaller game. And so for those of us that really want to launch and really want to grow, it's fascinating. What we think we can do in 1 year is typically more than what we can accomplish, but then it's what we think we can do in 5 years is a lot less than what we imagine. So trying to change those things and really step into who do you want to be in your vision and what kind of business owner you want to be, along with what kind of person you want to be as well. For business owners, a lot of us, well, we can go into the next slide.
So
This is just a little bit about me.
say that again, Molly. What we think we
Yes.
can do in 1 year is more, but in 5 years it's
It's
less.
a lot less. So, like, I would say, oh, in the next year, I can start a business and and make $500,000, but in 5 years, I'll only do like 750. It's really odd how we
So
do that.
we're overly optimistic in 1 year and we sell ourselves short in 5 years.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's fascinating to watch. And so if we don't accomplish that, if we start a new business and we want to hit that 500,000 and we don't, it's really deflating. And so that's a part of what holds us back, is saying, okay, well, I didn't hit those thresholds, so it's because of who I am that I couldn't make that work.
Why do you
And
think that? Why do you think that is?
a lot of it has to do with how we've been raised and a part of our culture. So, especially for people that feel less powerful in society. So, women tend to, as we're growing up, we're looking to the outside world, and with social media, it's becoming even worse. So, we're seeing younger men and younger women with social media where they're looking to the outside world on, who's doing what and how people look and who's successful. They'll see like a 15-year-old that's successful on TikTok, and so we're constantly having the outside world validate who we are. And when we're looking to the outside world for validation, we're not finding it within ourselves, and then we start putting shame-based meaning on ourselves, like, um, if I was meant to be a business owner, it would just serendipitously fall in my lap, and because it hasn't fallen on my lap, I'm not meant to do it, right? And so what that does is it starts to we start to take a smaller role in life because it's not safe to fail. It's not safe to put ourselves out there and then course correct. So, perfect example. I love this example that happened recently. Elon Musk put a spaceship into space, right? It lasted 4 minutes and it went about 25 miles and it blew up. And and Elon Musk and all the PR came out that it was a major success, right?
Yeah.
Massive success. For most of us, if we spent all that resources, all the time, all the money, and something blew up in 4 minutes, we probably look at it as a failure. So it's how we look at what we're doing and how we can course correct and how we can make it better so that if we do fail, it is safe to fail. And Elon Musk showed us the way that it is safe to fail and it is safe to course correct. But
So
so many of us won't do it.
do you think the expectations fall into that? Because I think that his expectation was not that he stay, in the air for 10 hours. So maybe his expectation was, hey, man, if we can get in for a minute, 4 minutes is amazing. So
That's the PR that came out. But if you're Elon Musk and you spent that kind of money and you had those kinds of engineers and
yeah,
those resources and that time, do you
yeah.
think he wanted it up there for 10 hours versus 4 minutes?
But
Absolutely.
But I think what he wants versus what he expects is different. And I think your expectation is what can jerk you around. If you have an expectation, if you want 10 hours in the air, that's way different than if you expect 10 hours in the air.
Yeah.
If you want 10 hours and you get 4 minutes, I think you can still be really, that you can feel really good about that. I wanted that, I didn't get it. I can be happy. But if your expectation is, I really thought we would be able to do it for 10 hours and we only did it for 4 minutes, that's harder. That's a harder pill to swallow. No?
And in this particular case, they were able to collect a whole lot of data that gave them insight on how to make it stay in the air a lot longer next time.
So
And
that's
that
why
was the
I
big,
win.
yeah.
Right, but that's a part of the course correction, right? So
Yeah.
so as business owners, as we put ourselves out there
Mhm.
and we spend our money and our time and our resources and we put out, let's say that we put out an ad and we spend $10,000 on this ad, and we're hoping that it drives traffic in through our front door, and all this money is spent and nobody shows up, or four people show up. Let's just say, let's use the same analogy. Yes, it could be a success because we had four versus none, but the time and the resources, then we've got to look at those data points and say, why didn't people show up? And what am I offering? And maybe my offering didn't match what my clients wanted. But so many of us instead will say, it's because of who I am that I failed. It's because of who I am that I didn't create the space to make it work. So there's a lot of business owners that feel isolated. They feel like they have to do everything themselves. They feel like nobody understands that they give and they give and they give to their employees, and their employees still walk out the front door. There's all these things that happen, and we don't stop and say, wow, that's great data points. I wonder why half my staff walked out the door. This is great data, right? We don't look at it that way, right?
You just spent $10,000 in tuition. What did I learn?
Right. And but we don't see it that way, right?
Well,
Most
some
people
of us
don't.
don't.
I
Some
feel like
of
I
us
absolutely
do.
do.
Yeah.
Right. Some people do if you have the resources, but if you're really starting out and you don't have the resources and you've leveraged your home and everything else and you put the 10,000 out there and it fails, it's pretty hard to recover. It's pretty hard to say, "Oh gosh, that was a learning experience." And so that's what we're talking about. It's so instead of throwing $10,000 out into the wind for advertising, wouldn't it be better to ask your best clients, your top 10 clients, your top 5 clients, what do they like about you? What do they like about your services? And how can you maximize those 5 best clients to put the advertising out that attracts clients like them instead? So these are all the things when we're showing up where we feel like we are not in a powerful place or it's not safe to fail, we will make mistakes like that instead of trying to course correct and figure out what really does work and how do you do that. So if I'm showing up in entrepreneur syndrome and I feel like any day somebody's going to pull the curtain back and be like, oh my gosh, it's Molly instead of the Wizard of Oz. How am I showing up to my clients? How am I showing up to my team? How am I showing up in my advertising? What's going on if I feel that I'm a fraud and somebody's going to figure it out? That's what we're talking about more here is how do you break free of that, of those fears of isolation, or I'm not enough, or I'm too much, or I give and I give and I give and my clients just take and take and take. So those are the thought processes that we're trying to break free of. Do you see that?
About breaking through from imposter syndrome in all of its different guises, how it shows up for people, and how if you don't recognize it, manage it, understand it, then you're going to be acting out of it and be getting bad results.
Okay. So Liz, sometimes like we're talking about numbers and KPIs and you'll slow me down and ask me to explain something. Well, for the benefit of maybe the small portion of our audience that doesn't know what imposter syndrome is, could you explain?
Yes. So if you Google imposter syndrome, there is I think there's 130 million hits on it. Okay. So this is not just some random thing that I'm pulling out of my hat. This is something that a lot of entrepreneurs feel because they feel very isolated and alone. They feel like their friends don't really understand it because they're not entrepreneurs, or their family members don't understand it. And even when people have really good advice, if you go to somebody and you say, gosh, I had a really hard day, half my staff walked out the door, they may say in all their love and kindness, well, maybe you should find something else to do. Right. And so how many of us have that happen? And then you're sitting there going, gosh, it's got to be me. My staff walked out. It's a reflection of me. I lost half my clients. It's a reflection of me. I put out $10,000 in advertising. Nobody showed up. It's because of me. And so this is what we're trying to break free of. And so if you just flip to the next slide, I think I have something on the 4 steps of leadership and what's really important in leadership, and really having that vision that is something that well, this is just talking about the entrepreneurs not feeling isolated or not enough. It might be the next slide.
Okay.
Or it might be one. Okay, so stepping into that greatest potential. So here you are, and you're feeling that isolation, or you're feeling like you're not enough. The ways to step out of that and to start stepping into who you truly are, and looking at the world as your education, right? Like you said, Liz, that this is good data from the spaceship blowing up in 4 minutes. And Tom, you said the same. And now they've got all this information and they can course correct. So this is really important in stepping into your greatest potential, is to realize if you're really feeling isolated, what can you do, and what are the resources you can do to find people to support you? If you're feeling like giving and giving and giving, start to look at, is what I'm giving what people want, right? So if I'm here as an entrepreneur and I'm saying, I'm going to serve everyone, everyone's my client, then it's so broad that you're really not able to focus in on who your key clients are and how you can really step into your greatest potential, because you're spread so thin and you're trying to over accommodate and over please everyone. So stepping into this greatest potential is stepping into your vision. What is my vision? What does my company look like? Who are my clients and who are my employees, right? And if I'm a solo entrepreneur, do I want employees? And if I do, what do they look like, right? And how do they act and how do they perform? And so really stepping into what is my vision, because if you don't have a vision, you're just setting sail and letting the wind take you wherever you want to go. So having that vision of what your company is, and then starting to look at the barriers that are holding you back and identifying those inner barriers. Yep.
And this is for the entrepreneur who's struggling, thinking that it's them. It's like, I spent that $10,000, I guess, and it didn't work. It's just, I'm not worthy. Is that
With me.
It's actually
okay?
for everyone. It
Okay.
doesn't matter if you've been in business for 10 days or if you've been in business for 10 years.
Sure.
If you don't have a vision for your company, and you don't know who your ideal client is, and you don't know who your ideal employee is, and you don't, how can you operate
Yeah,
your business to be the greatest it can be, and for
I get
you to
that.
be the greatest you can be? And the people that really, it's taking your top 5 to 10 clients and trying to mass produce those. Why do you like those 5 clients? What do they do? Are they overly generous and caring and would stay with you even if you make a mistake? Or what is it about that client that you really like? You would love to have that client all day long, every day. So who is that client? And that's a part
One
of the vision.
one of my favorite books about this is by Mike Michalowicz. It's called The Pumpkin Plan. Have you read that one,
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that book speaks to this idea, right, of pumpkin planning your business. Just focus on the best customers and the most important customers, and let's do more of that. So I don't think that is necessarily connected like to what you were saying earlier about the imposter syndrome. It's just that is also something that is happening. A lot of people in the world today are dealing with imposter syndrome, right, Molly? Did I get that right? And this is also something that people need to work on. Yeah.
Well, if you don't have a vision, then you're kind of flailing, and that also promotes the imposter
Yeah.
syndrome,
But
right?
this is
So
broader than imposter syndrome. This is
this is how to really step into your greatest potential. Not just, I'm not just talking about imposter syndrome
It's a lot
here.
more than that, right?
There's
Yeah.
because there's people on the maybe in my mind on the other end of the spectrum that it's everybody else's fault, and the discussion usually goes something on. It begins with, "Well, you just don't understand. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
my employees are messed up, and my customers are messed up, and
Where I live, the economy is different,
yeah,
right? I
and it's
But
not
again,
them
that's
at
all,
all."
they're
Yeah.
all looking to the outside for validation, right? So if you're saying my employees are this, or the economy is this, or my clients are that, it's all looking to the outside world for validation of what you are doing as a business owner. I'm asking you to pull in inward, look inside yourself, and decide what you want to do. So for example, during COVID, this is a great example. I was faced with employees that were really afraid to go into clients' homes, clients that were afraid to have employees come into the home. And I decided so many of my employees didn't want to work on the weekends. There was just a huge shift. There's a huge shift from a business owner telling employees their schedule to employees dictating how they're going to run my business. So it was really interesting, and it was a big aha moment. And you're trying to please everyone. And I decided to walk away from $100,000 of business so that I could change the whole paradigm of my company, and it changed my vision of the company. It changed everything, and I couldn't be happier, actually. And then I made that $100,000 back within the year. But I decided not to do VRBO cleanings anymore because they were back to backs. It put a lot of pressure on the company. If employees were sick, I didn't have anybody to clean the VRBOs. They didn't want to work on weekends, and I just got rid of them. And all the
Mm.
clients that I kept that were my vacation homes, because I'm up in Big Sky, so I'm up in the Yellowstone Club. Those are large vacation homes that families just own them; they don't rent them out. And and if we missed a clean, it wasn't the end of the world, right? Nobody walked into a dirty place. It took all this pressure off of me, and it absolutely changed the vision of my company. It changed the way I showed up for my employees, and it changed the way my employees showed up for my clients. And it all came from me not being afraid to walk away from $100,000, because that's a lot of money to leave on the table. That's a ton of
So,
money, especially in our industry.
so what I heard initially was that to step into your greatest potential, you have to set this new vision, and that by setting the new vision, you would make decisions like cut out the 100K, etc. But what I just thought I heard, maybe I got it backwards, was you cut out the business and that changed your vision. So I can't understand chicken or egg. Vision first, and then you make new decisions, or do the thing, and then that will change your vision.
Well, I would love to say that I could have predicted the pandemic, but I couldn't. So when the pandemic hit, the changes happened simultaneously because there's no way I could predict a pandemic. I
Yeah.
couldn't predict what was going to happen, but I could sit in it and I could make decisions in real time without the fear, and releasing it and saying that. So if I stayed into my inner barriers of I'm a failure, I can't get people to work on the weekends, my employees are running my business, all those things that we were saying during that time, that keeps you from playing a smaller game, right? You'd stay small, and I was like, no, I'm going to take what I have and empower it, right? I'm going to change my company so that it not only benefits me and my employees and my clients, right? Even though I had to walk away from my VRBO clients, but it was a great thing that I did, because then they didn't have to have people come into a dirty place. So what I'm getting at is, when the vision hits and you're faced with a vision, whether it's the housing crisis, pandemic, inflation, whatever is going, lack of employees, too many employees, whatever is happening, the vision has to be created, and it can constantly be evolving, constantly course correcting. I could have said, wow, I made a huge mistake. I walked away from $100,000 in business. I need to go get that back. I could easily have done that as well. Now that we're out of the pandemic, I could easily go back for it, but it's not what I want, so I'm not going to do it. But your vision has to stay fluid. It cannot be rigid, but you've really got to look at what makes me happy as a business owner, and what makes me profitable, and how do I want to live my life, right? Do I want my company to own me, or do I want to own my company? And stepping into that vision of whatever that may look, your ideal client, your ideal employee, and stepping into that vision, and then realizing to break free of those inner barriers of, I have to do it all my own, or can I get an assistant, and can I trust that the assistant will do it? Maybe not as great as I will, but I can have that support, right? Because so many of us as owners begin to micromanage because people don't do it the way we do it. When you start to step back and allow people to do it differently, it still gets done, right? And that's a part of the growth. But so many of us get stuck in this thought that if I don't do it, this is why we have, entrepreneurs that are out in the field cleaning. If I'm not with the team, they're not going to do it right. I'm sure you guys have never heard that. If whatever it may be. So those are really those inner barriers, and what they really are is fear of letting go, fear of asking for help, fear of failing, and fear of being able to course correct in real time. And so if you step into that growth mindset, right? So if I step into the growth mindset of, yes, I can fail, and if I fail, I'll course correct, but it's not because of who I am that I'm not good enough. Like I can decide to walk away from $100,000 in business. If I made a bad decision, I can course correct and go after that business again, right? It doesn't mean that I'm a failure because I walked away from the money or those clients, if that makes sense.
I think so. I think I might have gotten a little confused there. I think maybe we're using a different definition of vision. I think once I clicked into, I think when I'm thinking about vision, I'm thinking of something that I set. It's like my vision for my future. I'm deciding what I'm going to do, what it's going to look like. But I think the definition of vision you're using is, what do you see? What's here? So like pandemic hits, that's your new vision, right? Is that what I heard? I think that's what
I
I
don't
heard.
know how they can be different, Liz. I'm confused on how they can be different, because if you have a vision for your company, right? I would have never walked away from $100,000 of VRBO. The pandemic hit.
So I'll tell you how I see them as different.
Okay.
One, when I think of vision, I think of the future. It's what I'm planning on, what I'm building toward, what I'm going to build in my company, the kind of company I'm going to build. Not what is happening today. The vision is the future. So what's happening today impacts my vision. So I might decide, I wasn't expecting a pandemic. I'm going to have to shift my vision, because my vision before was to have this certain kind of company. But I was planning on having a company that had 2-person teams or 4-person teams, and we all rode around in the same cars, and we went out. Wow, guess what? The pandemic is changing what I want to build in my company, because that won't work.
And even in normal times, I don't think I know a single business owner that, with their idea of, I am going to start a house cleaning business, or I'm going to buy a house cleaning business, after doing it for 6 months, their vision has shifted. What they thought it would be versus what it is different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I got a little, once I understood where we were going, I think I got on track. It's like, okay, we're talking about today, and how what you see is not, what's happening is not about you being bad or you being wrong or anything wrong with you. It is what it is. And you have to still move forward and bring out your best potential based on what's happening today. Don't live in this this other world. Is kind of how I'm hearing
Right.
it.
Well, if you're rigid and you say this is my vision and you don't ever course correct, it's probably not going to work very well. Right. And like what Tom's talking about, I mean, our visions change and we have to adapt to whatever is going on. Nobody could ever predict that that we'd go into a pandemic, and then when we came out, that we wouldn't have employees. That would be extremely challenging to have employees. And it was really heartbreaking to turn away 10 clients every day.
Yeah.
Really heartbreaking as a business owner. So then your vision's very different from 2019 to 2020 to 2021 to 2022 and even to today. So I don't know how the vision can be so far out that I'm on this course without constantly navigating and course correcting.
Well, I'm thinking, I'm agreeing with that. The vision is set, but you don't
Mhm.
change. Most people don't change their vision. They just change how they're going to get there. It's like, oh, this new environment, I have to course correct because my vision is still the same. For example, my vision is that I want to be a $25 million company, right? And I'm using an example of a company that I know right now. The vision is a $25 million company. And before the pandemic, his plan for how he was going to get there was blank, 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 blank. The pandemic hit, and now his way of getting to the same exact vision is not blank, 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 blank. It's whoa, blank, 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 and a little bit of that. And I'm not exactly sure, but he didn't change his vision because where he wanted to go is still the same. He just, how he was going to get there had to change because the world today is. And we talk about this all the time, Tom. The world today is a different world than it was 3 years ago.
Oh,
Our
yeah.
employees, and I think this is exactly what goes to exactly what you're talking about, Molly. The employees of today are not the same employees of 3 years ago. The employees of today aren't routinely thinking that it is normal to be expected to work a 40-hour plus a little bit of overtime every week. The employees of today don't think that.
So the biggest thing here and something to really, really think about is when we are focused outwardly that the employees this or the economy this or the pandemic or whatever it may be, we're still looking to the outside and we're still blaming the outside. When we start to change our mindset into that growth mindset and say, the employees, the ideal situation for my employees is to work 4 days a week. Let's just say that's
Yeah.
their ideal. So how am I going to create my company to accommodate that vision of my employees? Because if I'm going against the grain and saying they won't work 5 days and this and this is why my company is not succeeding, that's not the true story. The true story is this is the data, and like Elon Musk, this is great data. How am I going to work around these new parameters? And what's my new vision today? And what's my new vision next week? And what's my new, as I continue to get the data, my vision can still be that I want 25 million company, if that's what I want. But I'm going to constantly navigate the waters, but I'm also going to show up differently as who I am and stepping into that leadership role. If I'm walking in this fear mode that my employees only work 4 days and I can't get enough employees and I have to turn away all these clients and what am I going to do, and poor me, and nobody's looking out for the little guy. If that's my story, I am going to be able to show it to you 30 different ways, right? I'm going to be able to show you how my employees don't work. And I'm going to be able to show you my books and I didn't make 25 million. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove it. But how am I showing up? How am I showing up in that data, in that information? Am I showing up unresourced? Am I showing up fear-based? Am I showing up that I have to do it all myself? Am I showing up that all my employees are worthless and I can't trust anybody and nobody's there for me and nobody understands me? So this is what we're really talking about when we're talking about leadership. We're looking inward. It's really easy to look outward. But if and some people have a hard time to grasp it about themselves because it's really hard to self-actualize on your own. And that's why a coach can help tremendously. But if you look at your employees, if your employees are coming in and they're afraid, right? They're afraid of whatever is going on in their world, that they have food insecurities, housing insecurities, that they're afraid with inflation that they can't afford food or daycare or whatever's going on with your employees. If you really look at it, because some people, if you can see other people easier if you see how they're showing up, and you're asking this mom who doesn't know if she can pay for childcare or medicine or food or whatever she needs, and you're asking her to go out and clean for a client and show up as her best self when she is in this space, how do you think she's showing up? She's showing up that she's not good enough and that the world is against her. And then if this client gets upset with her because she forgot to shake out a rug, and she's devastated and she comes back and she's like, I'm just not meant to clean. It's because of who I am that I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to be a mom. I'm not good enough to clean. And if your team is showing up in this way, and it really affects people that feel of less power. So if you can imagine a cleaner going into a client's home, who has the power? If an employee comes into the office, who has the power? So when you're looking at people that feel like they have less power, they can, not always, but they can feel 80% more often than people of power. 80% more often, they will feel it's because of who I am that I'm not good enough. It's because who I am, the client doesn't like me. It's because who I am, the team member doesn't like me. And so if you're looking at that and how they're showing up, no wonder they can't work more than 4 days a week. No wonder they're stressed. No wonder they're scared for money or whatever's going on in their life. And if they don't feel resourced and they don't feel supported and they don't feel like they can course correct and they don't feel like they can fail and they're afraid they're going to get fired, do you see what I'm talking about with that, in stepping into identifying those barriers so that you can break free of them and look at it more? As I tell my team, in 17 years, I've never dragged anybody by their ponytail into my office and fired them. So when you're talking to them
Good.
about having a
Just
safe a safe environment where they can make mistakes, a safe environment where they can course correct, a safe environment where if a client is upset that you have their back. It's a totally different environment than going in and being afraid for your livelihood.
so
Does
this
that
is
make
kind of
sense?
what I'm hearing from you. Very short, that you're talking about Henry Ford's quote: "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." So, and what you're saying is the people who think they can't create that proof for themselves, and they create that reality because they see themselves as not being able to do it. They can't do it, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, basically,
Yeah,
because from
it's because of who I am that I'm not good enough,
because
right? And instead of right, because people of power are like, I don't know how to market, but I'm going to go find somebody that can. Right? I may not know how to create a software program, but I'm going to find somebody who can. I don't know how to do the accounting books, but I'm going to find somebody who can. It's totally different when you're of power and you have the resources. It's totally different than if you're coming from a space where you don't feel resourced, you don't feel supported, you feel invisible, you feel that you can't can't give enough,
do you think
right?
there's a connection between how they feel and what they believe to be true?
So what typically happens is because of society at a very young age, people figure out that feel less powerful. They have realized that other people have spoken to them or treated them in such a way that doesn't resource them or give them the tools to course correct and have that place feel safe to fail. So when that happens, when a teacher, let's just say, comes and gets upset with you because you didn't do your homework, you're starting to look at the outside world like, wow, that's really interesting. I got, embarrassed in front of the whole classroom because I didn't do my work, right? And it was because I could give you 20 reasons why, but whatever it may be, then you learn as your classmates are laughing or talking behind your back, you start to shrink, right? And you start to say, wow, it's because of me. I didn't do my homework. It's because of who I am that I'm not good enough.
So
And we
yes,
learn this at a very young age. And this is this is not because people mean to do it to others. It's just how we have learned in society on how to be, right? And so there are some people that, and mostly men, that will say, well, I didn't do it. I'll course correct. I'll figure it out. A lot of women tend to shrink back on it because we've been looking at the outside world for validation. And it's totally different.
I think you're saying yes, that yes, their belief is connected to how they feel, that because they feel this way and they find proof out there that creates a new belief system that they are not good, right?
Right. Well, there is, yes, that is correct. And that belief system,
I'm
a
so
lot of
confused.
people can't, yeah, a lot of people can't break free of it on because they don't know they even have it. They don't even
Right,
know they have that belief
of course.
system.
We can't see what's back here, right? I mean,
Right.
unless we're
Well, you've been doing it for so long. It's just that, it's because of who I am. I'm not, if the stars aligned, my business should be doing really well. Right?
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing I think that you and I differ on, though, like you are talking about how people look at the outside and they see like all of this stuff, and it determines who they are. But how I see it is people see what's out there, and they should look at what's out there, because what they see out there is data, and they need to take that data and make changes based on that data that for their benefit.
Only making changes if you feel like it's safe to fail. Only. So
Um,
when you don't feel like it's safe to fail, you're not going to put yourself out there.
uh-huh.
You're not going to do it. So if I feel isolated and I'm all alone,
Hmm.
right,
Yeah.
and I see all this data and I see another cleaning company and they're doing 25 million, and I'm like, wow, they must be amazing. They
Yeah.
must be so great.
So when you think of, safe to fail, I think of something like skydiving. That's something that you don't, it's not safe to fail at that, but
Yeah. That's what I think of with safe to fail too. Like,
Hmm.
but
eh,
I think that you're thinking about something
I
broader
kind of
than that. That's like it's like more in your head than reality.
and more in your emotions, it sounds like, because a lot of this is about emotions and not about logical thought. It's more about like this feeling, emotional thought, like driving. And everybody will tell you, not everybody, but many experts will tell you that people are driven, their conscious thought is driven by their emotions. So those emotions need to be addressed because they're so powerful. They drive our activity, even when we don't think they do, right?
Well, but people that really don't think it's safe to fail, and people that have seen, they can give you examples of how it's not safe.
Of
They
course.
can tell you, I spent $10,000 on an ad and three people walked in the door. I had half my staff walk out the door. I had half my clients leave me. I can prove to you, Liz, that I have done all my work, all this data. I have all of it, and still my clients leave me,
Yeah.
and still my employees leave me.
But that's the human brain. The human brain finds proof for what it has determined is the data. And now they find the proof to show you why they're in the situation that they're in. We
So
all
if
we all
I, if
wait,
right,
let me
yeah,
and we all do that. Every
Sure.
single one of us does that. We find the proof for our story about ourselves, about other people. Every one of us has the proof. I can tell you why these things are true.
But if you start to shine the light on the story
Yeah,
and you shine the light on it
yeah,
and you see what you're doing where I'm not enough or
yeah,
I'm isolated or I'm too much or
yeah,
whatever it is. And once you shine the light on it,
yeah,
Liz, then you start to see it and you start to disrupt the patterns. And that's the key to success. So I could show you the stories, but once I start to see, wow, it is safe to fail, it is safe to course correct, it is safe to go to my employee and say, hey, what's up, instead of just firing them, right?
mhm,
When I start to change the way I show up, and I realize if I feel like I'm isolated and I start to ask for help,
yeah,
and I call you, Liz, and I say, gosh, I really need your help, and you show up, it starts to disrupt the old stories because now I can't say I'm isolated because now I have Liz helping me, right? I can't say I have to do it all alone because nobody can do it unless I do it. And I get out of the field and I start to have a team go out instead, or a single cleaner or whoever it is, and they do it and the client doesn't complain. All of a sudden, it starts to disrupt the thought I have to do it myself. If I don't do it myself, it will never get done. And I can tell you 1,000 business owners that will tell me every day, if I don't do it, it won't get done right.
Yeah.
And so if that's their story and they're staying in it and they want to get out of it and they really want to grow and they want to stretch and they want to be a different business owner, shining the light on those stories and starting to disrupt them and starting to get out of it and see how it can be different, right? We can see for other people how it can be different. We
yeah,
can't always see it for ourselves, right? So if I'm going to step into being a different leader in my world, in my life, in the way that I live, I have to disrupt the stories that have held me back, that have kept me from playing a smaller game. It's safer, right? It's safer to have 10 employees or one employee or 20 employees or four. What happens if I have 40 employees or 50 employees or 60 employees,
yeah,
right? It's not
yeah,
as safe,
yeah.
right? and
I
and so that's the part of stretching as a leader, is really shining that light on what's holding you back. What do you want? And then you hear the stories and they can tell you all the stories, and once you disrupt those stories,
by
then
stories,
they can start.
proof, do you mean the proof
Yeah, the
about
proof. The
story? Oh,
proof of why
Right.
they're playing a smaller game.
yeah, and why everybody else is holding them back. Or this goes to like Jim Rohn too, right? Jim Rohn preached on this hardcore. Darren Hardy, same thing. This idea of being held back by outside forces, and
Right.
and although yours is a little bit different because they're talking about allowing yourself to be influenced and molded by the outside sources and what you see, and then your idea, what I'm hearing is your idea is get a coach to be able to show you that here's the evidence that you're looking at, but look, here's the evidence you're not looking at. There's some more data points that you're not seeing. There are 25 data points and you're only looking at these 5 that are holding you back. Let me show you the other
Mm.
20.
But
I'm talking
you're
about inner. It's all coming from inside. So
you're
I'm shifting that belief from inside.
I,
you're making me more sympathetic, though. I mean, I hear that from time to time, and my quick response is, "That's all head trash," and start
yeah,
Mhm.
rattling off all the reasons why. And it's not real, but in that individual's head, if they think it's real, it's real at that moment to them.
go for
So,
that.
you know,
Yeah,
Yeah, and really thinking about it, as a business owner, you are in a power position and your employees are perceived as less powerful than you. And so really holding that space, for
I,
your
I'm
employees to
just
be
thinking in the
safe.
context, though, of dealing with other cleaning business owners, kind of in a
Same
coaching
thing.
role.
yeah.
And
Absolutely the same
I don't
thing
do a ton
because
of coaching anymore. Maybe this is why. Uh,
right.
Is why, Tom. I can remember you being so frustrated. Like, I told them exactly what to do. Why won't they just go do it? And any business coach knows that the most frustrating thing is when the path is so clear and the coachee doesn't take it.
right.
It's
So
like,
the biggest thing in coaching, just so you know, is you never ever give advice. Ever.
you don't need
Ever.
advice though. That's not what
Ever.
a
Yeah,
coach,
but you don't tell people what to do. So
yeah.
so if it is marketing or if it's finances or whatever, sure, it's very linear and all of that. But if you're telling somebody to not feel a certain way or to do something with their team or whatever it is, um, it will never be done because people, when you are a coach, you're actually trusting that the client has the answers and the client does have the answers. They just need that support to bring it forward. So Liz, if I came in and told you what to do
I have to,
in your business, there's no way you
sorry,
wouldn't do it.
if you're going to come on my show, you're going to have to deal with me arguing with you. All
I
right.
don't care.
All right. If so, I will agree with you up to a point, but there are times when people get so mired and so stubborn and so stuck that they have to see something. And I'm going to use because I also have been a coach for a few decades now, and I'm going to use an example of a coach outside of our industry, a football coach. So a football coach is going to bring out the best in you, but sometimes the football coach says to you, dude, you got to run faster. Get out there, run some laps, do some stuff. You got to make it happen because you're not fast enough. Bottom line. And so sometimes the coach does say, look here, look here.
When you're talking, but you're talking about a physical thing. You're not talking about an emotional,
I
deep-seated thoughts.
Well, only
So
because you
that's
said
totally
never.
different. It's
Only because
totally
you
different.
said never.
So you can be a football coach and you can say these are the stats
Yeah.
and you're running 5.2 and the guy that you're up against is going to run a 5.1. He's going to outrun you. You can give that's great data. You can give all the data and all of that. If I want to move from Bozeman to California, I need to have the linear touch points to get from Bozeman to California. If I don't believe then I can drive myself or I can actually move to California, not drive. Then I can actually move to California because I don't know if I'll meet anybody. I don't know if I'll have any friends. I
Have
don't know
enough
if I
time.
can make it work. You
Yeah,
can't tell me, "Oh, yes, Molly, you can do that."
of course not.
So that doesn't work. If it's linear, fine. But when you're looking at, I don't care what it is, Harvard review or whatever, and they talk about the 10 steps to leadership and being a great leader, those don't work. None of it, the data is good. The data is great to read. But if you're showing up that you are fear based or you're not good enough or you're invisible, you can't take those 10 data points and somehow muster this invisible way of being a leader. And so what I'm talking about shifting inside.
Yeah.
And if I told you, Liz, this is how you're going to shift inside of you, you'd be like, no, I'm not. So if I told you, now Tom has a great computer software, and if you use it, it could be a great resource for your company. That's totally different. I
Okay.
can give you resources, I can give you information, but
So
when it comes
you
to
just got
shifting,
me with 100%. You can't tell people what to do. I was just like, what?
mm,
I got already.
no. Well,
So
I could suggest, Liz, I really think Tom's software is amazing and you could buy it and you still may not want to.
oh, absolutely.
If I said to you, if you're looking for a software program, which one would you choose? You would then tell me which one you're going to choose instead of me telling you which one to choose.
Yeah,
Do you
of
see
course.
the difference?
Um,
So,
well, I just think that you're talking about two different things. So those are two completely different things. But I agree that they are different, and one is more effective for dealing with somebody who has blockages for sure than the other one is. If somebody doesn't have blockages, then the other one works just as well. There are some people that are asking you, hey, I need to know the best place to market my company because I've tried this, and this, and I need to know what else to try. And you can literally just tell them, try this, and this, and they'll go do it.
Yeah, that's totally different. That's a very different type of coaching. That is just giving resources. Read this book, whatever it may be.
Well, you see how I got stuck when you said 100%, you can never do it. I was like, I got lots of examples when you can.
You can give resources. It still won't mean that I'll do it. So you could give me the resources. You could give me a library of books. It still doesn't mean I'll read it.
Oh, for sure.
It's got to come from me.
Can you believe how fast an hour goes? We've got about 90 seconds left. And I know that and I guess in some way we certainly have talked about disrupting leadership. I don't think that we probably touched on all of the points that you wanted to touch upon, Molly. Is there anything here in the last minute or so that we have that you could share with us to help pull some of this together?
Her website while she's doing that, Tom.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the biggest thing that you could do today is to look at your top 5 clients, write down everything you love about them, and how you would like to start to envision your company if all of your clients were them. And then looking at if you have employees, your top employees, and envision if all of them were your top employees. And then how are you going to create your culture and your vision based off of that? So that would be my biggest recommendation. And another recommendation is really starting to look at the stories that you're telling yourself and start to shine light on it. Am I feeling like I'm invisible? Am I feeling like I'm not enough? What's actually happening and what's actually going on, and how to start to disrupt those stories so that you can step into the best vision of yourself.
And so I can see how, if you know you have these blockages, it would make really good sense to get a coach that could help you be able to work through these things, especially if you've tried. So what I run into a lot of times is people are like, I've tried, I can't do it. All right, that's time to get a coach, right? Your coach.
And we've already established I'm not that person, but Molly is.
Yeah.
So is this your website, Molly?
This is synergygrowthcoach.com. And this is my website, and there's all kinds of information on it. I do a free 30-minute Zoom call with anyone that would have questions or would like to have more information. I also do a deeper group coaching, and also will work with your team as well to help them so that they feel resourced and safe to fail. And yes, and not worry about being fired and let go in the process.
They can think 4 minutes is really good and something to celebrate.
Yes.
That's the 4-minute rule from now on, y'all.
4-minute rule. That's right.
We've all heard the 3-minute rule, and now we got the 4-minute rule.
Yes.
All right.
Well, I really appreciate you all having me on.
Thank you, Molly.
Today.
This was fun, and yeah, we are at the top of the hour though, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to call it a wrap for today. But we're going to be back next Wednesday, 5:00 Eastern, for Smart Business Moves. Till then, y'all take care. Bye bye.
Yes.
Bye, y'all.
Bye bye.